Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Pod English for Everyone. I'm Sarah, and I'm really happy you're here with me today.
In this episode, I want to talk to you about something deeper than motivation. I want to talk about your relationship with learning English, how you feel when you learn, how you stay calm when progress feels slow, and how you keep moving forward even when your energy is not always there. So take a moment. Breathe slowly. Relax your shoulders. And just listen. You don't need to rush anything here. You don't need to understand everything perfectly. You don't need to be impressive. You just need to be here. And that is already enough. Learning English is often presented like a system, a method, a schedule, a list of rules, a list of levels, grammar exercises, vocabulary lists, pronunciation drills. And yes, all of that can help. But the truth is, learning a language is also emotional. It is personal. It is human. Some days you feel strong. You understand more. You recognize words faster. You feel more open. You feel more confident. And on those days, learning feels exciting. It feels alive. It feels possible. But there are other days too. Days when everything feels heavy. Days when your brain feels slow. Days when simple words disappear. Days when you listen and think, why is this so difficult? Days when you compare yourself to other people. Days when you wonder if you are really improving. If you know that feeling, you are not alone. That feeling is more common than you think. And I want to tell you something important right now. That feeling does not mean you are failing. It does not mean you are not good at languages. It does not mean you should stop. It only means you are human. And real learning always includes those moments. Your progress is not a straight line. It is not clean. It is not perfect. It is not fast every day. Progress moves like waves. Sometimes it rises. Sometimes it falls. Sometimes it feels visible. Sometimes it feels invisible. But it is still progress, even when you cannot feel it clearly, even when you cannot measure it, even when you do not have proof yet. Something is still happening. Your brain is still adapting. It is still listening. It is still building patterns. It is still connecting sounds to meaning. It is still becoming more familiar with the language. Quietly, slowly, naturally. And this is why patience matters so much. Not because patience sounds nice, but because patience protects you from giving up too early. Many learners stop not because they are incapable, but because they expect learning to feel clear all the time. And learning rarely feels clear all the time. Sometimes growth is visible. Sometimes growth is hidden. Sometimes the best thing you can do is simply continue. Now let me ask you something very simple. When you learn English, do you feel pressure? Pressure to improve quickly. Pressure to speak well. Pressure to sound natural. Pressure to understand native speakers immediately. Pressure to stop making mistakes. Pressure to be better than you were last week. A lot of learners live with this quiet pressure every day. And the difficult thing is that sometimes this pressure sounds reasonable. It says things like, "Come on, you should know this already. You've studied for so long. Why is this still hard? Why do other people sound better? Why are you still hesitating? Why are you still translating in your head?" But that voice is not helping you. It may sound like discipline, but often it is just fear wearing a serious face. Because real growth does not come from shame. It does not come from panic. It does not come from constantly attacking yourself. Growth comes more easily when your mind feels safe, when your attention is calm, when you accept that learning takes time, and when you stop treating every mistake like a disaster. Learning a language is not a performance. It is not a competition. There is no final stage where one person wins and another person loses. There is only your journey, your pace, your life, your story, and your story matters. You do not need to learn like someone else. You do not need to sound like someone else. You do not need to move at someone else's speed. You only need to keep a relationship with the language. That is what matters. Not intensity every day. Not perfection every day. But relationship. Coming back. Staying in contact. Returning even after slow days. Returning even after tired days. Returning even after doubt. That is why consistency is more powerful than perfection. Perfection asks too much. Consistency asks only that you return. Maybe for 10 minutes. Maybe for 5. Maybe only through listening. Maybe just by repeating one sentence. Maybe just by staying connected. And that still counts. That still matters. Because language grows through contact. Not through pressure. Not through guilt. But through repetition. Through presence. Through small moments that add up over time. So instead of asking yourself, "Am I already good enough?" try asking yourself something gentler. Am I still coming back? Am I still listening? Am I still trying? Am I still giving this process a place in my life? If the answer is yes, then you are still moving. Even if slowly. Even if quietly. Even if imperfectly. And I think that is something to be proud of. Now, let's go a little deeper, because learning English is not just something you do for results. It is also something you live through your daily rhythm. Some days it feels light. Some days it feels far away. Some days you want to practice. Some days you avoid it. Some days you feel curious. Some days you feel resistant. And all of that is normal. The problem begins when you start to believe that only your good days count. Because your difficult days count too. Your tired days count. Your confused days count. Your quiet days count. Your imperfect days count. They are still part of the journey. And I think many learners need to hear that more often. You do not have to feel amazing to be learning. You do not have to feel motivated all the time. You do not have to feel ready. Sometimes you just need to stay gently connected, and that is enough to keep the door open. Now I want to stay with this idea a little longer. The idea of relationship. Because the way you speak to yourself while learning matters more than many people realize. If every study session begins with stress, if every mistake becomes proof that you are bad, if every pause becomes guilt, then of course learning will feel heavy. Of course your energy will disappear. Of course your confidence will drop. Not because you are weak, but because your mind is trying to protect itself from something that feels unpleasant. So maybe one of the most important changes you can make is not in your grammar routine, not in your vocabulary app, not in your study plan, but in your tone with yourself. What if you changed the sentence? What if instead of saying, "I have to study English today," you said, "I spend a little time with English today"? That is not a small difference. That is a real emotional difference. One sentence feels like pressure. The other feels like presence. One sentence feels strict. The other feels open. And learning works better when you feel open, when your nervous system is calm, when you are not fighting yourself the whole time. A lot of learners think kindness will make them lazy, but in reality, harshness is often what makes them quit. Kindness is not weakness. Kindness creates stability. Kindness helps you continue. Kindness gives you room to fail without disappearing. And that matters so much, because mistakes are not a sign that learning is broken. Mistakes are part of the learning itself. They are not outside the process, they are inside the process. They are not a problem next to learning, they are learning. Think about a child learning to speak. A child says the wrong word, the wrong sound, the wrong sentence, again and again. And nobody says, this child is hopeless. Nobody says, stop trying until you are perfect. Nobody says, come back when you are fluent. We understand the truth immediately. The child is learning through imperfection. The child is building language by trying, by failing, by adjusting, by trying again. And honestly, you are doing the same thing now, just in a different stage of life. So why should your mistakes be treated with less patience? Why should your hesitation become a reason for shame? Why should your imperfect pronunciation become evidence against you? It should not. The next time you make a mistake in English, pause for 1 second. Do not rush into self-criticism. Do not say, I'm terrible at this. Do not say, I'll never sound natural. Do not say, this is embarrassing. Try something softer and truer. Say, I'm learning. Say, this is part of it. Say, this moment also counts. Because it does. And the more you learn to stay present during imperfect moments, the stronger you become. Now let's talk about motivation, but not in the dramatic way people usually talk about it. Not as a giant wave of energy. Not as a magical feeling that suddenly changes your life. Because honestly, motivation is often much quieter than that. Sometimes motivation is not excitement. Sometimes it is just a simple decision, a calm decision, to try again today, to press play, to read 1 paragraph, to repeat 1 sentence, to listen while you walk, to stay in contact with the language for a few minutes. That is motivation too. And maybe that version of motivation is more useful, because big motivation comes and goes. But small motivation can stay with you. It can fit inside real life, inside busy days, inside low energy days, inside imperfect routines. You do not need to feel inspired every morning. You do not need to wake up excited about grammar. You do not need to love every part of the process. You only need enough willingness to return, again and again. And this is why your reason matters so much. Why are you learning English? Really, take a second and ask yourself honestly. Is it for work? For travel? For movies? For books? For friendships? For opportunities? For confidence? For freedom? For the future version of yourself that you want to become? Whatever your reason is, let it be real. It does not have to sound impressive. It does not have to be big. It just has to mean something to you. Because your reason is your anchor. On easy days, you may not need it much. But on difficult days, it can hold you steady. It can remind you that this effort has direction, that this process is connected to something meaningful. And that meaning can carry you much farther than pressure ever will. So keep your reason close. Write it down somewhere. Put it in your phone. put it on a note near your desk. Say it to yourself when you feel disconnected. Not in a dramatic way, just clearly, just honestly. This is why I'm doing this. And then continue with one small action. That is enough. Now I want to say something important about being present. Because many learners try to do too much. Too many videos. Too many apps. Too many methods. Too many expectations. Too much pressure to optimize everything. But language learning is not only about doing more. Sometimes it is about being more present with less. One short podcast. One clear sentence. One repeated phrase. One honest moment of attention. That can be more powerful than 1 hour of distracted study. So when you listen to English, do not panic if you miss words. Do not tense your body. Do not chase every detail with fear. Instead, stay with the rhythm. Stay with the message. Stay with what you can understand. Let meaning come before perfection. Let familiarity grow naturally. Because your brain learns more than you think when you relax enough to keep listening. And if you are listening to me right now, then that means you are already doing something valuable. You are training your ear. You are building tolerance for the language. You are becoming more comfortable with English in real time. And that matters. If this podcast is helping you right now, even a little, take a second to support the channel. You can like this video. You can subscribe if you want more episodes like this. And most importantly, leave a comment. Tell me why you are learning English. Or tell me what kind of topic you want next. Real-life conversations, travel English, dating vocabulary, speaking confidence, pronunciation, work situations. Anything you need, write it in the comments. I read everything, and your ideas really help me shape future episodes. So if you want this podcast to grow with you, comment below. All right, let's continue. Because if learning only feels like pressure, it becomes hard to sustain. You can force yourself for a while. You can push for a few days, maybe a few weeks. But long-term learning needs something more stable than pressure. It needs some form of enjoyment. Not necessarily excitement every day, not endless passion, just enough pleasure to make the process feel alive. So ask yourself, how can English feel more personal for me? What do I actually enjoy? What do I naturally spend time on? Music? Podcasts? Stories? Comedy? Interviews? Movies? Lifestyle videos? Travel content? Self-improvement? Gaming? Whatever it is, bring English into that space. Because when language connects to something you already care about, it becomes easier to return. It becomes more natural. It stops feeling like a separate burden. It becomes part of your life. And that changes everything. Learning does not always need to be serious to be effective. Sometimes a relaxed conversation teaches you more than a stressful exercise. Sometimes a podcast that feels calming teaches you more than a lesson that makes you anxious. Sometimes repeating a sentence you genuinely like teaches you more than memorizing 20 words you never use. So give yourself permission to enjoy the process more. Permission to be curious. Permission to explore. Permission to learn through things that make you feel interested. Because joy is not a distraction from learning. Very often, joy supports learning. Now, let me pause here for a moment. If you've made it this far with me, leave a comment and tell me what kind of episode you want next. Maybe you want daily life conversations. Maybe you want dating topics. Maybe you want travel English. Maybe you want slow storytelling. Maybe you want confidence and speaking practice. Whatever you want, tell me in the comments. I really want this podcast to grow around your needs, so your ideas matter a lot. Now I want you to imagine something with me. A future version of you. Not a perfect version, not an unrealistic version, not someone who suddenly becomes fluent overnight. Just a real version of you. A little more comfortable, a little more open, a little more confident in English. Imagine yourself understanding more without forcing it so hard. Imagine yourself hearing a sentence and not panicking. Imagine yourself speaking and not judging every word immediately. Imagine yourself expressing a simple idea clearly. Imagine yourself feeling less afraid of your own voice. That future version of you is not as far away as it sometimes feels, because you are already building it. Not all at once, not dramatically, but gradually, with every small effort, with every return, with every listening session, with every repeated phrase, with every moment you stay present instead of giving up. This is important. Confidence does not appear before action. Confidence often appears after repeated action. Many people think, I'll speak when I feel more confident. But usually the truth is the opposite. You begin to feel more confident because you speak. You become more comfortable because you continue. You trust yourself more because you survive imperfect moments and realize they are not the end of the world. So please do not wait to feel perfectly ready. That moment may never come. Instead, begin where you are, with the level you have, with the voice you have, with the energy you have today. That is enough to move forward. Now, I also want to talk about rest, because many learners feel guilty when they slow down. They think, if I take a break, I'm losing progress. If I feel tired, I'm falling behind. If I miss a day, I'm ruining everything. But rest is not failure. Rest is part of sustainable learning. Your brain needs recovery. Your mind needs softness. And sometimes the best thing you can do is not force yourself into a heavy study session. Sometimes the best thing is to do something lighter. Listen instead of study. Repeat instead of analyze. Stay in contact instead of disappearing completely. There is a big difference between resting and quitting. Resting says, I'm still here. I just need a gentler way today. Quitting says, I'm leaving the process entirely. So if you are tired, choose a smaller step. But stay connected if you can. That small connection matters. Now let's talk about fear of speaking, because this is such a common block. A lot of learners understand more than they say. They listen, they read, they learn vocabulary, they follow podcasts. But when it is time to speak, everything freezes. Why? Because speaking feels exposing. It feels public. It feels like proof. And if you are already hard on yourself inside your head, then of course speaking can feel scary. But the goal of speaking is not to prove perfection. The goal of speaking is to practice communication, to use what you have, to grow your flexibility, to become more comfortable making meaning in real time. That is all. So what if you changed your definition of successful speaking? What if success was not sounding perfect? What if success was simply this? I tried. I stayed present. I expressed something. I continued even after a mistake. That is successful speaking. And when you define success that way, you give yourself space to improve instead of space to hide. You do not need long conversations at the beginning. You do not need to sound polished. You can start very small. Say one thought out loud when you are alone. Describe what you are doing during the day. Repeat sentences from podcasts. Answer simple questions in your room. Talk to yourself in English while walking. All of that is real practice. All of that helps. Now I want to talk about slowness, because many learners are frustrated by how slow growth can feel. And I understand that. We live in a world that celebrates speed. Fast results, fast transformation, fast progress, fast success. But language is not always fast, and that does not mean it is not working. Sometimes slowness is exactly how deep learning happens. Slow repetition, slow familiarity, slow confidence, slow integration. There is nothing shameful about learning slowly. In fact, slow learning can become very stable learning. Because you are not rushing past everything. You are letting things settle. You are giving your brain time to build something real. So if your progress feels slow, please do not automatically turn that into a negative story about yourself. Slow does not mean broken. Slow does not mean stupid. Slow does not mean impossible. Slow often just means human. And when you stop fighting the pace, you often suffer less. Now I want to give you a simple idea. Instead of trying to always feel motivated, try becoming familiar with the process. Let English become something normal in your life, not a huge event. Not a dramatic task. Just something you return to. Like a walk. Like a cup of tea. Like music in the background. Like a voice you know. The more normal English becomes, the less emotional resistance you may feel. And that can make consistency easier. Because what feels normal is easier to repeat. So maybe your goal is not to become a perfect learner. Maybe your goal is simply to become someone who keeps a gentle connection with English. That identity is powerful. Because if you become someone who returns, then progress has room to happen. And now, let me say this clearly. If you are still here listening to me, you are already doing something many people avoid. You are facing difficulty. You are practicing patience. You are choosing growth. And that deserves respect. Not because it looks impressive from the outside, but because it is real effort from the inside. Let's keep going together. I want to talk now about self-trust. Because learning English is not only about learning the language. It is also about learning how to trust yourself inside the process. Many learners do not only struggle with vocabulary or pronunciation, they struggle with their own reaction to difficulty. The moment something feels hard, they panic. The moment they do not understand, they lose confidence. The moment they make a mistake, they start a story in their mind. Maybe I'm bad at this. Maybe I'll never improve. Maybe I'm wasting my time. But self-trust means something different. It means saying, even if this is difficult, I can stay here. Even if I do not understand everything, I can keep listening. Even if I make mistakes, I can continue. Even if progress feels slow, I can still return tomorrow. That kind of self-trust changes the whole experience. Because now, difficulty is no longer an emergency. it becomes part of the road. And when difficulty is no longer an emergency, your nervous system relaxes. Your attention improves. Your consistency becomes more possible. Self-trust grows through evidence, not big evidence, small evidence. You came back after a difficult day. That is evidence. You listened even when you felt tired. That is evidence. You tried to speak even though you were nervous. That is evidence. You survived an imperfect moment and kept going. That is evidence too. So please do not ignore your own proof. You are stronger in this process than you sometimes think. Now, let's talk about identity. Because the words you use about yourself matter. If you keep saying, "I'm bad at English," your brain hears that. If you say, "I'm too slow," your brain hears that too. If you say, "I'll never sound natural," your brain begins to expect failure. And expectations shape behavior. But I am not asking you to lie to yourself. I am not asking you to pretend you are fluent when you are not. I am asking you to use language that leaves room for growth. Instead of, "I'm bad at English," try, "I'm still learning English." Instead of, "I'm too slow," try, "I'm learning at my own pace." Instead of, "I'll never sound natural," try, "My English is becoming more natural with practice." These are not empty positive sentences. They are more accurate. They reflect process. They reflect movement. They reflect reality better than hopeless statements do. And the more accurate and supportive your self-talk becomes, the easier it is to continue. Now I want to talk about the beauty of repetition. Because repetition can seem boring, but repetition is one of the reasons language starts to feel natural. When you hear the same kind of sentence again and again, your brain stops treating it like something foreign. It begins to feel familiar. It begins to feel normal. It begins to become available to you. This is why listening to podcasts regularly can help so much. Not because every episode gives you magic, but because regular listening builds familiarity. With rhythm, with structure, with everyday expressions, with pronunciation, with calm exposure, and over time, that calm exposure changes you. You may not notice it in one day, but you may notice it after weeks, after months. You suddenly understand more. You suddenly remember phrases more easily. You suddenly feel less resistance to the language. That is repetition doing quiet work in the background. Now, let's come back to something practical again. What can you do when you feel unmotivated? Here are a few gentle options. Listen instead of study. Repeat instead of analyze. Write one sentence instead of doing a long lesson. Read one paragraph. Watch one short video in English. Say 3 sentences out loud about your day. Keep your steps small enough that you can actually do it. Because the goal on hard days is not performance. The goal is continuity. The goal is to keep the connection alive. And continuity has incredible power over time. Now, I want to pause one more time and ask you something. If you want this podcast to really help you, tell me in the comments what kind of topics you want me to cover. Do you want daily life English? Do you want confidence episodes? Do you want more slow speaking practice? Do you want relationship vocabulary? Do you want work English? Do you want travel conversations? Do you want episodes that feel more like stories? Tell me, because your comments really help me create content that is useful for you. And if you enjoy the way I speak here, slowly, clearly, calmly, then subscribe too. That way you won't miss the next episodes. All right, let's continue toward the end together. I want you to remember this. You do not need to become fearless before speaking. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is continuing with fear present. So if speaking still scares you, that does not mean you are not ready. It only means you care. And you can still move forward. One small speaking moment at a time. One repeated sentence at a time. One honest attempt at a time. And every time you do that, you teach your brain something valuable. You teach it, I can survive this. I can try. I can stay. I can continue. That lesson matters far beyond English, because language learning can change the way you see yourself. It can show you that you are more patient than you thought, more capable than you thought, more resilient than you thought, that you can build something slowly and still build it well. And that is powerful. Now take a second and think about how many times you have already continued. Even after doubt, even after confusion, even after slow days, even after frustration. You are still here. That means something. Do not underestimate what that says about you.